Hi, I'm Kate Warren, Director of Global Recruitment Services at DevX, and welcome to my weekly Career Matters video blog. So last week, we discussed about what to do when you don't meet the minimum qualifications for an international development job. But some of you asked what to do when you have the opposite problem, when you're actually overqualified for jobs. One commenter, Sandro and Lima, said sometimes there's another frequent frustration being overqualified. Employers could understand that sometimes job seekers not only looking for money. So this is a common refrain I hear from professionals working in international development, particularly those that are looking to transfer into the sector or transfer into other areas of the sector, that they run up that they're overqualified, and sometimes that's the response they get from employers when they apply to jobs. So to talk about that issue, I first want to just explain why employers are hesitant to hire people who they deem overqualified for a position. So I would say the first factor is salary, what Sandro mentioned. They are concerned that if you have experience or education well beyond what the qualifications of the job require, that your salary expectations will be a lot higher. And if they don't have the budget for that, they won't be prepared to pay for it. So that's usually a frequent concern of employers is the salary. The other thing is, if say you are willing to take a pay cut or your expectations are still within range, there can be a concern that maybe you're saying that today, maybe you're really looking for a job, and so you're feeling a little more desperate and willing to take anything you can. Their concern is that once you are hired, what if something better comes along, a higher paying job? Will you leave them for that job? A lot of employers have actually been burned by this in the past, have had that happen to them. So that's a big concern, and often a concern coming from experience. So that's something to definitely be aware of. I'd say the other concern is just expectations of the role. So a candidate that maybe has, again, years of experience or education might come in expecting to do a certain level of work, but say it's a very low-level program assistant kind of job. Actually, a lot of employers that I've worked with are reluctant to hire even master's graduates for some of those entry-level positions, because they have found, again, through their experience, that these employees tend to become very disgruntled with the work, are frustrated with maybe the more administrative nature of it, are expecting to do more, yet they really need them to do those basic skills. It's good to be motivated and want to grow and improve, but you still at the end they have to be excited about the basic work that needs to be done. So again, that's another concern they've had, and sometimes from their own experience in the past. The other concern is that they might not even take your application seriously. So if you're applying to a job where you are really overqualified based on the minimum qualifications in the job description, their impression might be that you are just sending out a bunch of applications to a lot of jobs, not really carefully reviewing them and then seeing what comes back. So they might think that you're not really interested in that position, that you're just sending them off, and so they might not want to contact you because they think that you won't really want to follow up. The other is that maybe you are just really highly qualified but in the wrong areas. So being qualified doesn't necessarily mean you have the basic qualifications for the job that needs to be done. So an example is, I know of a lot of CEOs that are great masterminds at running their businesses, but they don't know how to put together a basic PowerPoint, or maybe don't even know how to type. So just because you are highly qualified doesn't mean your skills really match up with the qualifications of that lower level job. And that's often a concern of employers when they're looking at people who exceed the qualifications of what they need. Is will they actually be able to do what's required of this job? So let's say that you've thought about all of these issues and you don't think they really apply to you. You're willing to work within the salary. You're excited about the expectations of the role. But how do you really communicate that to employers so they take your application seriously? So the first step I would say is really pay attention to the cover letter. This is where a cover letter can really be your friend. This is great space for describing your motivations. I think you should be very frank and clear that you understand your qualifications exceed what was required. So don't try to hide the fact, and be able to appreciate that frankness, but why you are still really motivated and excited and have the skills they need to do a job well done. So again, using that space to be very upfront. Don't focus on a lot of the maybe more impressive sounding experience that you have, because then they're going to have the impression that that's the kind of work you're looking to do. Another thing is, not all recruiters or hiring managers look at cover letters. and most look at CVs first and then decide if they want to look at a cover letter. So if you're really banking and relying solely on that cover letter, it may never get looked at. One strategy you can employ is combining your cover letter and CV into one document. So I suggest PDFing it, but have that cover letter first, so the recruiter is forced to scroll through that document. They'd have to much more actively dismiss it, forced to read through it before getting to your CV. So that's one strategy you can employ. But the other is to also look at your CV and how you really describe your experience. And a lot of times when people are writing a CV, they're trying to focus on what's most impressive. But in this scenario, you actually kind of want to downplay that. If you focus on your skills and experience that are really out of line with what this job requires, it's going to spark some of those fears of, will they be interested in the actual day-to-day of this job? Are the expectations in line? Are their salary expectations in line? So you do want to focus and really match up your skills and experience to that specific job. Again, in the cover letter, if you really expound upon your motivation to work for the organization and not really specifically what that job requires, it might give them the impression that you are using this job as kind of a launching pad or stepping stone into another position within the organization. And if they really are looking to hire that position, that could be a fear of theirs. So I'd say the other thing is, if you do make it to an interview, again, think about these same principles of focusing your experience and trying to match it to what this job requires, rather than trying to focus on what might maybe sound the most impressive in your background. If you have a PhD and maybe you've done very in-depth policy research, but you're applying to a more administrative level job, don't focus on those so much when in the interview or in your CV, because the employer is going to leave with the impression that that's the kind of work that you want to do and are looking to do. So again, focus on the skills and tasks that really align with the job at hand. So I hope some of these tips helped you, and I encourage others who are reading this or watching this to leave your comments with any advice that you have, be it from recruiters or job seekers. And if you have any other questions or comments, please feel free to tweet me at DevEx Careers, and it might be the subject of a future Career Matters video.